This is the Rolling with Tay podcast. I'm your host, Tasia, aka Tay, and this is episode 13. And this is actually being recorded on the 13th. It won't be released on the 13th, but it is still special. And I've been recording for a year. That's crazy. I've been doing my podcast for a year. So this is big. This is a big episode. And of course, I have Mo. Oh, man.
No pressure.
Special. Hey, listen. Special thanks to you for being a guest on my podcast. I appreciate that. Welcome.
I appreciate you. Humbled to be here.
And you're part of quite a few clubs here. You're part of the New York Cycling Club, Rafa Cycling Club, Major Taylor Iron Rider Cycling Club, and last but not least, Cycling Fanatics. Should I say NYC, New York?
It's funny. We've grown a little bit outside of the metropolitan area, but CFNY, that's the family.
Nice. Again, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you, and congratulations on making a year. That's a big deal.
Thank you.
And I didn't really think it was Friday the 13th. So now I'm nervous.
Yeah. So let's get into it. Tell me your story. How did you get into this? How did you become a cycling fanatic overall? And then, your cycling journey.
Yeah. Wow, that can get kind of deep for me. But I've loved bikes as long as I can remember, and I have a relationship with bikes that I think comes from a lot of different perspectives. Mm-hmm. I think that, some people are in it from this angle or that angle, and they don't really see or appreciate the other side. But I think my journey's been sort of interesting. So I grew up son of, some poor immigrants on Chicago's South Side, and my parents were like super conservative. They were like study, just typical, stereotypical immigrant parents, right? Like nothing matters but studying. You don't need friends. Everyone's out to get you because they're bringing over that mentality from, the homeland, where, either they're crazy or everyone was out to get you. But I'll never forget my first experience with the bicycle was getting a hand-me-down bike. And I think about it, to this day, it was like, was I so conservatively restrained from doing a lot of fun things that this bike blew my mind. But I must have been like 5-6 years old, and a friend of my father's brought like a hand-me-down bike, and I got on it, and it was just like the best feeling in the world. I felt like I was flying an F-15, right? Whee! something I say to this day was like, when every time I get on a bike, it feels like I'm a dog that gets to go outside. And so I don't know if I was just deprived as a child, or if I was, cycling was just always passionate and resonated with me, but that's such a profound memory for me. Yeah. And then throughout my life, I've always just had a, affinity for riding a bike, right? So I wouldn't, have particularly nice bikes or anything like that, but I would always be riding, right? If I was as a teenager, you think about how practical it is, right? It's like, I don't have any money.
Yeah.
Like, how am I going to get around? I don't have money for a car. I don't even have money for gas. Don't even have money for bus fare. So, it was a cool way to get around. And then after a while, I saw that was stretching, right? So Chicago's pretty flat without knowing. You can go from like the south side to the north side and end up in the suburbs. And so I kind of got into this routine. I'd take a basketball, kind of jam it under my top tube, and awkwardly ride around, bar hop. It was kind of social riding, stuff like that. And then, the older you get, money becomes more important. So I eventually became a bicycle courier in Chicago, and, started riding to actually pay the bills. So that was like my relationship with cycling changed again. It wasn't even for pleasure at that point. Although I will say that was probably the most fun job I've ever had in my life. It was hard. I'd be exhausted at the end of the day, but it was, it was just a thrill. It was a joy every minute of it. The challenge and the adrenaline and, getting hit by cabs and all that.
Oh, no.
And then, I started to find other work and got into sort of the commute lifestyle, right? So it came back to being a little bit more practical and getting a little bit of exercise and always kind of riding around. but I didn't really know much about bikes. I didn't really have a particularly nice bike. You know, even though I was a courier, I didn't really get into the fixie scene.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of had upright hybrid sort of bikes, and I just ride around comfortable and just log miles. I didn't understand how a derailleur worked, no sort of mechanics or anything like that, but it was just something that really, like, my heart just connected to it. I just loved riding bikes, and I was kind of like the bike dude without being the bike dude, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the ego, I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the the knowledge of mechanicals or different types of bikes or geometries. I never had drop handlebars. I didn't wear the spandex, none of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of kept going on for a while. And, I'll spare you some details, but I've moved kind of all around the country for work. And, I would commute. So flash forward, I moved from Chicago to Hawaii and then eventually here in New York City. And in New York City, I was riding my bike as a commuter. So at the time, I was kind of like, there's a lot of things I didn't understand about New Yorkers at the time. I made fun of y'all, so I apologize for that. But
It's
one of
okay.
them, one of them was, well, how the hell do people pay that much in rent? And so I found a spot that was out in like Ridgewood, Bushwick, between the L and the M, and I would ride my bike from there to Midtown every day,
Mm-hmm.
and that was fine and dandy. Lo and behold, little did I know, 12 months later, I'm like, take all my money. I want to live close to the subway. It's
Yeah.
like I get it now. But anyway, so I was commuting, and I, sort of started climbing or reaping the benefits of, a lifelong career, working my ass off to get a better
Mm-hmm.
job, to get better pay, to so on and so forth. And I eventually was kind of like, life is short, I'm in my mid 30s. I had some health conditions in the past. God is good. I passed through all that, but
Mm-hmm.
but I was kind of like, life is short, man, and I love cycling so much. Maybe I should just buy a really, really nice bike, you know? And growing up poor and like kind of being new to even having disposable income, I guess, I was hurting for like 3 years on this decision, right? I'm looking at carbon fiber bikes and like I don't really know geometry. I'm not, cycling's complicated and it can be
Yes.
intimidating. And I could just never really pull the trigger on anything, right? And then eventually I met a guy who was telling me, I was telling him the same story about all this, right? And he's like, yo, get a titanium bike, bro. They're every bit is they're almost every bit is, light and nimble as a carbon fiber bike, which isn't exactly true, but they're extremely light, best of both worlds. And he said, you'll give it to your grandkids. So, given my history and not knowing how to do bike maintenance, knowing I'm sort of a rough and tumble rider, right? I'm 225 pounds. I fly through the city. I cut off buses. I bump into things. I'm like, I don't want to spend, $3,000, $4,000 on a really thin plastic bike that,
Mm-hmm.
sure, you can lecture me and say carbon fiber is going to be just as strong if you ride it properly. But there's no way you're going to tell me that when I accidentally run into that fire truck, it's going to be as strong as a metal bike, right? So anyway, he told me that, and about a week later, I bought my first road bike, drop handlebars, titanium. $4,000. I think I went in, and I was like, "This is the most money I've ever spent on anything. This is
Whew.
the nicest thing I own. This is amazing, right?" And with it, I bought a mechanic's manual,
Mm-hmm.
and I sort of made a conscious decision. It was like, this is the nicest thing I own. I got to be able to take care of this, my baby. I don't want to do what I've always done, which is kind of ignore maintenance until it gets so bad that you take it to a shop and then they do whatever they do. It's like I want to know
Yeah.
when something very minor goes wrong. I want to fix it before it gets worse. It's like this is my baby. And so that was sort of an interesting thing for a couple reasons. One, it's like it's the most expensive thing I ever bought, and I was like opining over it for 3 4 years. And I finally bought it, and it was like, okay, I justified that expense, right? Cycling's expensive, but I spent my money. I'm in. I'm done. Yeah, little did I know how cycling actually works, right?
Exactly. Gotcha.
so, so I'm like, yeah, yeah. So like, I got my bike. This is dope. Da, da, da. And he's like, yeah, when does it come? And it showed up, and I'm like, yo, my bike doesn't have pedals. He's like, yeah, man, nice bikes don't come with pedals, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, okay. So then I started looking. I said, yeah, send him a link. I think I'm gonna buy these pedals. He's like, yo, you got a nice bike, man. You can't put those shitty pedals on that nice bike. I'm like, oh, okay. So I buy some nice pedals, and I'm like, oh, I guess I need some shoes. I send them a link. It's like, oh, you can't have those shoes, man. Those shoes are no good. You can't have those shitty shoes on those nice pedals on that nice bike. And so anyway, I finally get all that together and I go out to Prospect Park. It's right up the street from me here. And I ride my bike in the loop and it just blew my mind. Uh, you probably too young to remember a movie Days of Thunder about stock cars, but it's like Lightning McQueen out there doing around that little lap. I was
Mm-hmm.
just like flying up behind people and passing them, and I like driving fast. I got a lead foot, so just being on a bike and feeling that fast was a completely new
Right.
feeling to me, right? Because I had been getting my workouts and riding hard, but I was on these big, heavy,
Mm-hmm.
non-aerodynamic. They just weren't road bikes, and so that taste for speed, I mean, it's hilarious. We used to beat up people in spandex in high school, and then next thing you know, I'm like dressed like a superhero, riding through New York City, like wee. But it like absolutely changed my life. And then, I think I've put on. I'm about 20,000 miles in since then. That's
Woo.
2018, and so that mechanics manual, right, comes into handy because I bought a bike with a lower group set and kind of really cheap wheels, and I knew that at the time that I wanted to sort of upgrade, right? I wanted to learn and upgrade, and maybe it's not the most cost effective way, but it's a way that you really learn a lot of stuff, and I
Mm-hmm.
kind of got that mind for it. So I eventually moved. I bought a frame set for a gravel bike pretty early on, and I moved my group set to that. And I bought a Di2 and just started really getting into it. And now, through a lot of trial and error, don't get me wrong, you got to buy the tools, and then you do something wrong, you got to do it again. There's so much time you put into, but I feel like I run a sort of junior bike shop in my house now. It's not uncommon for a mechanic at a shop to call me and maybe ask me if I had a certain tool.
Wow.
It's like, oh, okay. And that's really notable to me because I remember going back to childhood memories. I can kind of remember my brother having a 10-speed bike, and I thought it looked so cool. And I had a little PTSD. He yelled at me. He pointed at like the derailleur and the cassette in the rear. He's like, "Don't ever touch this. It's so complicated and expensive. You'll never understand it. Just don't touch it. You can mess it up." And I think part of that is why I was always intimidated by how a derailleur worked and just basic mechanics. So
Mm.
sort of interesting that now I can build them up from scratch pretty good. I help people troubleshoot stuff and try to pay it forward. You get the tools and you get the skills, and then there's a couple things. Like one guy told me, he said, you've done all the work that you need to do. So I built up the road bike, I built up the gravel bike, I recently built up a track bike. Like everything I did was sort of sequential. I restored a
Mm.
vintage steel bike, I pulled the bike out the trash and fixed it up, and he's like, okay, so now you just got to go and help other people, right? That's how you get experience. Is like
Yeah.
bring all their weird issues and quirks. And then you say, I spent $100 on this tool. If I go to the shop to do the thing the tool does, it's like $50. I got to go twice for it to pay for itself. But it's almost like each tool is worth, it pays for itself more the more you use it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might as well benefit by helping other people and getting all that stuff out there. Um, and so, yeah, 20,000 miles in, I joined these cycling clubs here in New York. Um, and I find that cycling is just such a phenomenal way. So I'm a transplant. Cycling is such a phenomenal way to get to know the area,
Mm-hmm.
and the people. But you get to know the area. I say that, like, walking is really intimate, but it's really slow.
Mm-hmm.
Driving is really fast, but it's not intimate at all. Like you don't get to
Right.
see all the shops on the block or see what's going on in every corner. And cycling is like this perfect middle ground where you can cover enough ground, but you're not going so fast that you're unable to take it in. So I can
Mm-hmm.
go and see, oh, there's a little club here. That bar looks nice. This little antique store. And you can just stop whenever and kind of check stuff out. So between joining these groups and and riding around, so I started to learn, like, okay, that's Long Island City, and that's Hell's Kitchen, and that's these are the little turns and quirks, and sort of learning shortcuts and learning neighborhoods and their characteristics. In a lot of ways, I feel like I'm starting to feel like I know New York City, and I'm a little bit of a history buff, right? I like to analyze all sorts of facts about things, but I feel like in a lot of ways I know New York City better than a fair amount of New Yorkers I met.
You probably do.
So, which, like, New Yorkers kind of live in a bubble, which I'm starting to be one, right? I was like, oh yeah, you're in the Bronx. I could get up there. That's like a quick train ride, about an hour, no problem. And then, 2 years later, I'm like, I don't leave a 3 block radius.
Exactly. But see, that's what you're right about that with cycling. I lived in the Bronx my whole life, but didn't really know these certain neighborhoods until I started riding a bike. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we have a block named this, or oh, this is where this is. And like it opened my mind.
Yeah, yeah, it really does. And then even to take that point a little bit further, um, the last year, like the last 8 months or so, I find myself, I hate to say it, but like a little bored, right? I find
Mm-hmm.
myself a little bored by riding the same roads all the time. So
Yeah.
I've just made it a point. I ride from, let's say, I commute to Midtown from Fort Greene, downtown Brooklyn, every day, and I pretty much take the same route every day. And so about 8 months ago, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna turn here, see what's
Mm-hmm.
down there. And so I just started making it a point to go down every road I have never been down. Sort of similar. You may have seen someone was in the news recently for riding all the streets in Brooklyn, and I started sort of the same quest. So I've done 33% of Kings County, I think, without even
Wow.
trying. And so this summer I'm going to try to like hit every side road and because it's all about new roads and adventure for me
Yeah.
now.
Mm-hmm.
There's only so many times you can go around Prospect Park. I mean, I've done 100 miles on that 3 mile route loop.
Yeah.
And then even Prospect Park, to your point, I got a gravel bike, right? So you can go off the trail or off the paved loop into the dirt trails. And the park suddenly seems so much bigger. So it's just kind of like,
Mm.
life's an adventure. Let's go soak it up. So I've been doing a lot more travel riding and just trying to meet up with new people and new streets. So like I was saying, joining the clubs, Rafa, RCC, um, met more people, right? So then you
Yeah.
get to meet people. You're making friends because I didn't grow up here. All my friends are back home in Chicago, or the friends that I made in Hawaii, I left them too. I keep moving, coming to cities where I don't know anybody. But cycling's been that great sort of connector where you just fall into a healthy activity, get to know a new area, and meet a bunch of people. So it's been really good, and that sort of dovetailed into the cycling fanatics piece.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I had joined, Rafa, kind of off the bat. They have a good. The reason I joined them is they do a bike hire program, so you can rent a bike pretty easily.
Oh, okay.
And going back and forth to Chicago and other places, it was just a good deal. So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
signed up. But I think that as I signed up for all these groups, me not seeing myself, shame on me, right? As a cyclist,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the hell that means. I think it was mildly intimidating, right? I think that his cycling, in my experience, has had barriers to entry for people like me, and I would say that even some of that's self-inflicted, right? It's like a insecurity thing on my part to some extent. But I also think groups didn't really, and we could talk about this in a minute. I think they're trying to change that
Yeah.
a lot these days. But even even 4 years ago, I don't think groups really tried to be inclusive. And I'm not really just talking about racial lines or socioeconomic things. I just mean in general.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just like not just like very cliquish and a lot of
Yeah.
ego involved
Mm-hmm.
and it's intimidating when you see people with a $10,000 bike and like matching spandex superhero uniforms and they're all over there and you're like, hey guys, I want to ride my bike. It's like it's just not the most welcoming vibe. And I will say, and I've said this twice, I'll say it again, some of it's in our own heads, right? Where
Yeah.
we
Mm-hmm.
doubt ourselves and like, oh, we don't belong. Sure, that's a piece of it. But what was interesting to me is as I did all this stuff to join these groups, I found this group of people on the internet. I think I was looking at the NYC Century Ride, and I was on the internet, and there was like a forum, and people were talking about it, and then somebody was like, "Hey, I'll invite you to this WhatsApp group," and I popped in the group, and I think you were probably in there at the time, but I popped in the group, and and it was just a bunch of people talking about cycling. Right, we're gonna go ride the bikes over here. It was just a group chat. Everybody's got
Mm-hmm.
10 of them these days. No big deal.
Right.
And there was a couple things notable about this one. So I'm sort of a computer nerd, awkward dude. So that was just my vibe is chat rooms and group chats anyway. So I'm comfortable in that sort of environment. And but notably, me being new and having this voracious hunger for information, it was like such a resource to me to just be like, hey, what's an Ultegra? And I'm like, I was telling you about all the trial and error on the mechanic
Mm-hmm.
stuff, right? So I'm on the YouTube a little bit, which I think is kind of cool. I'm on the book, right? The book gives you 5 different types of brakes. So it gives you like this big overview. But then when you want to know what exactly you want to do with a specific thing, I'll go on YouTube and watch a specific video for that. But then there's always questions, right? You need a mentor, you need someone to ask. And so I'd just be in that chat and I'd say, hey, my brake hose is doing this thing and, blah, blah, blah. Or I'm thinking about buying this. I want to upgrade. What's an Ultegra? And just really peppering that chat room with questions while people are joking and goofing off and whatever, riding. Uh, I learned so much. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's unreal how much I learned about bicycle mechanics, shopping, gear, that sort of stuff. And then eventually routes, right? Because a lot of that stuff, a lot of the chatter in the chat, which was its primary goal, I think, was just to get people organized to meet up for rides. So it's, hey, who's doing the NYC Century? Let's go meet up and blah blah blah. And so I met a great group of people. Turned out to be a lot of people from Brooklyn there,
Mm-hmm.
which is where I live, and got a lot of information. So it kind of became it was like a big part of my community. Like daily, probably I'm in there talking to folks who's riding in the park, who's going to
Mm-hmm.
9W, who's going to
Mm-hmm.
Jamaica Bay. It was just always this whole vibe. And the reason I mention it is because I distinctly remember one day being like, I'm in RCC, I'm in Major Taylor, I'm in NYCC, and no knock on any of those groups, right? I mean, Major Taylor sent an email, come meet us at Strictly. We're going to Bear Mountain, and NYCC has a big ride library, and RCC has their app of their rides. But I distinctly remember feeling like I had these options to go on all these different rides on the same day with all these different clubs, but my vibe and my heart was really with the people in this chat that I had been talking to, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
establishing relationships. I know all these people a little bit more intimately, and I was just kind of like, wow, like I think I prefer to ride with them. So you take away sort of the cachet, right? The swag that you get with like I'm on a Rafa ride, I'm on this Major Taylor ride because you say you ride with Major Taylor and everyone's like, whoa, those dudes
Yeah.
are fast.
Mm-hmm.
Those are fast boys over there, right? Fast boys and girls, and so it was almost like I didn't really care about that sort of level of swag to be riding with these known groups as much as I'm gonna ride with these guys because they're fun.
Mm-hmm.
And flash forward, and this is sort of what ties into sort of my role at Cycling Fanatics, I guess. Is flash forward, I was kind of like, look, guys, I got a tech background, and I really think that we have something special here. And especially 4 years ago, and now it might be a little bit different, and I think about that a lot. But 4 years ago, I was kind of like, look, guys, I think all the groups I ride with, this is the most inclusive and welcoming just off the bat, right? There's no fees, there's no big logo or website to make you think that it's something official and scary. It's, just low barrier, casual, chill vibe for everybody. And everyone here really comes from a different socioeconomic background in a really unique way. It kind of reminds me of a certain neighborhood in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
um, where most of Chicago is really segregated, but there's one particular neighborhood that I spent a lot of time in growing up where it was really diverse. And so you just look around at some of the rides we were on, and we'd be like, wow, that's a 20-year-old Chinese immigrant dude, and that's a 60-year-old white guy that grew up in Jersey, and everything in between. I mean, I've had a ride where an investment banker from France turned to me and he was like, wow, that guy, he's a doorman, a concierge at a building uptown. He's so cool, man. This is awesome. And so you got the socio-economic diversity.
Yeah.
You got people on nice bikes, really nice bikes, but they're not. There's no ego with it, right? So it's like that. What I was telling you, you got the guys in spandex with the bikes. I think we would go out and look that part, but then you get to talking to people and they're like, wow, these guys are super chill. And then you got the knowledge, right? So I was like, you know what, guys, I think what we should do is, let's get a website. Let's publish a calendar. Let's put up a website, and let's try to build out the chat room a little bit and just promote what we're doing here. I was like, this has been so instrumental to me
Mm-hmm.
in my cycling journey that I think that other people could benefit from this if only they knew it was out there, right? If it's just some chat room, it's probably not going to get as much traction. Let's put up a website. So at the time, we were just posting rides, community rides on the website. Escape New York or Thursday Night Social and Ride, whatever it was. But we would just be a place for people to know where they could go meet up with other people. And if
Yeah.
you wanted to chat about bikes, you could join our chat room. And that was kind of a semi-controversial thing, I think, at the time. Like, why are you doing all this? What is all this? People kind of liked it the way it was or whatever have you. But it's really been a good thing to see it blow up to 300 some odd members. And, you see stickers around town. People are like, I know who you are. And so on and so forth. And then, COVID-19 hit and all the organized rides stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that got kind of weird for us because before that, we would do our little rides, but we didn't really consider them to be, rides that we publish and lead and organize. Not at that kind of level, right? It'd be like, hey, Tay, you want to go ride? Hey, Ivan, let's go do this, on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So with COVID kind of putting the kibosh on all the stuff that was on the calendar, we started posting rides a little bit more organized. So we would create the route, publish the route to the calendar, post it on the Instagram, tell people to come meet up, just communicating a little bit better. And so that was kind of a nice thing because we're just a collective of folks, right?
Mm-hmm.
People ask me if I'm the founder, if I'm the president, are you the leader? And I think in some ways you could say I'm the de facto leader because I'm just like I'm going to step up and do these sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have a board of directors. We don't have a president and vice president. We don't have a lot of structure. We only have two rules, right? Love bikes, don't be an asshole. And so it's a community where anyone can volunteer to step up and do anything they want. So the engine is there, the website, the calendar, the branding. And it's like, what do you want to make of it? If your interest is gravel riding, then you can carve out a little gravel riding program and put it under this umbrella of what we're doing. If you want to do road riding or you want to do mechanic workshops or you want to find like-minded people in the cycling space, we're just kind of a hub for that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's a little awkward, right? Because, not everybody wants to do extra work. People are busy.
Yeah.
But I try to post things up the best I can, and then people step up from time to time. They say, hey, I designed a jersey. We designed a kit for this year. You want to run with that for 2022? And it's like, oh, that's cool. Or someone will design some graphics or, have some ideas about an event or a route. And so it's kind of this organic thing that it oscillates, right? It goes up and down season by season, just like life.
Yeah.
Someone will move away, someone will get less interested in cycling, some new people will come with some fresh ideas. And so it's been really interesting to judge how the group is doing because every year is just kind of different.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what are we doing this year? Who's doing what? And so I think it's a cool place for people to get involved if they want to. And it's a welcome place. Sometimes I say it's a feeder group that makes some people angry, but it's a great place for people to get their feet wet. Some people want to do race team stuff, right? And that's fine too. And if you want to do a CF race team, give us a call. You can set up a CF race team for all I care. But I think that from my perspective, there's race teams everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. There's clubs with organized rides everywhere. And what makes us sort of unique is the vibe of just being organic and chill and going with the flow and not really stressing so much about who we are and just being ourselves, which has kind of been a really nice thing. And so it's funny. I kind of remember you. I think were in Cycling Fanatics before I was.
I did go on a few rides, but I guess before, like in the early days.
You didn't think I was going to bring that up, did you? I do remember. Yeah, you were lurking a little bit.
I was
in the early days, but I mean, it's really interesting, right? Because you have a great perspective, I think, of how things have grown and changed.
Yeah.
Because it was really just a bunch of knuckleheads, right? Just kind of goofing off.
Yeah.
Say the least.
Yeah, like definitely Like the rides were definitely fun. I didn't feel any type of way. Um, uh, if I was falling behind, people waited. It was cool. I had a good time.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's just the reason I give pause a little bit is because as we've grown alongside a global effort to decrease, or allegedly, is where I'm gonna get myself in trouble, allegedly decrease the douchebaggery in cycling,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So 4 years ago, I think the landscape was very different from how it is today.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of components behind that. One is the social justice movement for racial equality, right? So everyone's like, we want to have more brown people. Rafa's posters got brown people, and everybody's got brown people. Blah, 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 blah. The other thing is you have, again, I guess, out of that social movement, a beautiful thing where you're seeing a lot of cycling clubs grow up and blossom
Mhm.
as of 2020, in areas and demographics that are generally not thought about when you think about cycling. Like in Brooklyn alone, there's, probably six or seven. And the funny thing about that is people make comments like, "Oh, you guys were around before 2020?
Yeah. Right.
You're an OG group." Like, yeah, guess we were cycling before it was cool. But yeah, so you see a lot of initiatives for skin color diversity. You see a lot of initiatives for economic diversity. You'll see a lot of initiatives to promote women being included in cycling. And I think you didn't have quite as much of that. And it's hard for me to say that with conviction because I'm sort of new to the game.
Mhm.
But it's interesting where in 2017, I would have told you, hey, Cycling Fanatics is really special because we bring all this stuff to the table that I don't really see other people bringing to the table. And in 2022, I think I have to answer that question a little bit differently. I got to think about it a little bit more. People are like, well, what is Cycling Fanatic? Why are y'all special?
Mhm.
We say, oh, well, we're trying to be inclusive and blah, 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 blah. And everyone's like, yeah, well, we are too. Like, okay, I get it. So there's just kind of an interesting thing there. And I sometimes question, like, where do we even fit in anymore? Because when I look at all these beautiful groups that my brothers and sisters are putting up all the way from the Bronx to Brooklyn, I mean, a lot of it is very similar to the stuff that we've been trying to do, period.
Mhm.
The one thing that I do add as a layer onto that is some groups that represent diversity in cycling, and they do very much represent diversity in the larger cycling diaspora. Um, the groups themselves on a micro level aren't very diverse, which is to say, like I was talking about Chicago being sort of separated,
Mhm.
you'll have a group of Latin American cyclists that represent diversity in cycling. But if you look at the group itself, the group's all Latin American. You have a
Mhm.
group of African American cyclists that represent diversity in cycling, and yes, they do, but the group itself is predominantly African American. And so to me, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because these are all different building blocks, and it's huge progress because the groups were all historically Anglo-European, right? And you wouldn't see anything else but groups of Caucasian people. So it's a beautiful thing to see that stuff. But I think that, we're just a little bit different because you look at our group and depending on the day, like you couldn't put a bead on. I think the closest you can get, we got a bunch, we got a bunch of Asians lately. I've had someone ask me, "Oh, you guys are that Asian group, huh?" but I think on most days there's just a variety of just different people, right? It's hard to get a big number or a clump or a majority of what it is. So I really think that that's a beautiful thing. But like I said, I think what we're trying to do is no longer terribly special. So I question that sometimes myself, but I still think that every time I question it, someone comes up to me on a ride or something. They're just like, "Yo, I'm so glad I found you guys. This is exactly what I was looking for." It's kind of like, I'm not really sure what that means, but it feels really good to hear it. It's like, and it always seems, not to get all religious, but I feel like the universe is really in tune. It always seems to hit at the time I need to hear it the most,
Mhm.
where I'm kind of down and questioning things. And I'm like, it's tough trying to get people together and lead, right? Leaders always are subjecting themselves to criticism. It's much easier
Mhm.
to play the wall and criticize than it is to make a decision.
Yeah, it
And
is.
so whenever I'm feeling a little down and I'm like, we don't charge dues. We don't make any money. Like, I'm a busy dude. Why am I putting so much time and energy into this? Just kind of questioning the mission. Someone comes up and says something that just like they're so appreciative and genuine from their heart. It just recharges my batteries and my sense of commitment to kind of keep going. Um, but yeah, like where we're headed, I'm not sure. We're just the more and more I think about it, we're just sort of an open hub. We moved from the WhatsApp to a Discord server, and in the Discord server, there's channels. So each channel, one for mechanic questions, one for training questions, one for bike packing, one for nutrition, one for whatever have you. And Discord, I think more and more people know of it every day. It's kind of like the de facto chat community for Gen Z, maybe.
Yeah.
I remember when we were moving from WhatsApp, there was a big debate, like we should use Slack. And I'm like, Slack's for old folks, bro. But the Discord's got 350 people in it now.
Wow.
And so lately I'm just kind of pushing that as like, hey, we're just a hub. Like if no one wants to carve out and be a ride leader or carve out a training program or carve out a piece to be whatever they want it to be, then the nucleus just is, right? It's a place for people to be whatever they want to be. And I was laughing. I used to go into the different channels and try to keep conversations going, right? Like, oh yeah, this is an old tech. I'll go here and answer a question, I'll go in there and answer a question. I kind of felt the need to keep some momentum going. And it's grown to the point where like I can go days without saying anything in there. People pop in, they're talking to one another. It's a beautiful thing to see. And so I think it has a life of its own. And you think about legacy and stuff like that. It's like I'm pretty proud of the stuff that we did to kind of create a community. I like to think that, God forbid, if I disappeared, if I died today, that stuff will still kind of live on and be an important piece and hopefully, contribute a lot of value as a resource for other people as it did for me for years to come.
Yeah, definitely. That's what cycling, as like for me, joining these cycling clubs and going on these different rides and building these communities with this one thing that we share in common is cycling. And then we find out we have other things in common. But what joins us together is this cycling, our love for cycling. And I think that's so dope. And I think what you guys are doing and what you guys have done is dope. I always see you guys post rides on Strava too. And I feel bad because I'm like, dang, I would get them like, oh, we're having a ride here. And I get an invite. I'm like, dang, I can't go. Or I'm like, oh man. Because honestly, like when I get that, I feel special that you even, I'm sure y'all just click on everybody who's following the page or whatever, but it feels like kind of special. Like, dang, I got invited to the Cycling Fanatics. Like, to me, you guys are a big deal. Like, you guys are a big deal.
You are special, Tay. You are absolutely special.
So I'm like, oh man, y'all doing laps in Central Park at 6 a.m. I'm not gonna go, but thank you for inviting me. Oh, Prospect Park. Oh, 9W. Oh, this. Thank you, guys.
It's funny you say that, right? Because I think, and this is where philosophies differ sometimes, right? And this is where cycling gets really, really ill to me. Is I have a philosophy that the more the merrier.
Yeah.
And just because you're inviting people doesn't mean you have to sacrifice what it is that you're trying to do, right? So this is something I talk about a lot, right? And it affects all sorts of cycling clubs. And I used to think that it was like a cycling fanatics thing, but the more and more I looked and learned about other groups and got involved in things, it was kind of like, everybody has the same problem. The fast boys want to go fast, and they feel like everyone else is cramping their style. And I'm like, and so that leads them to be a little bit more secretive and cliquish and less inclusive, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to post that on Strava because then, Mo and Tay might show up, and I'm not sure they can keep up with us or whatever it is they're thinking. It's like, to me, I don't see it as zero sum, right? I don't. It's just like two completely different things. If you want to go out and say I'm riding 27 miles per hour to Bear Mountain at 9 a.m., I don't see any reason why you don't post that. Yeah. And if people show up and they say they want the smoke and they get dropped, and that's on them, right? Like, you said what you were gonna do, you went out and did it. Like, that's on them. That's not on you, right? And so I think that that's where I spend a lot of my time and energy is like I think a lot of people, and I don't want to say about other groups, I'm talking about my group right now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people feel like they got to be real careful and cultivate who they invite to what.
Yeah.
And it's not about like, oh, that person's a jerk or I don't like that person. In fact, I think it's for no good reason at all, right? It's like, oh, this is this, and then you get the whispers, right? And so that was another thing about CF was, um, for me, I love the hub as just an open place for discussion because I would
Mm-hmm.
find that 7 different people who I would call friends, for example, on any given summer Saturday, are talking about riding bikes, and 2 of them are in a text chat with another 2 of them, and then 3 of them are in an Instagram chat, and then one of the dudes from the Instagram and one of the dudes from the text chat are like in a WhatsApp,
Yeah.
and they're all sort of texting me individually, like, "Yeah, I'm about to go meet dude in this park," and then they're like, "Oh, dude's in that park. I'm going this one," and it's like, dude, you guys are all in Discord. Like, why are we communicating so inefficiently, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know, like I don't want to make presumptions, right? Like, is it ego and is it gatekeeping? Is it accidental and coincidental? Like, I don't know. But I just generally try to push all that stuff into one place because I feel like as someone who, cycling is very much genetic based. You got a genetic ceiling of how fast you're going to get, period.
Mm-hmm.
Cycling is very much leaned towards smaller people. You know me, I'm kind of a heavy dude. And I feel like my biggest opportunities for growth are chasing after those people, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're younger, you're lighter, you're stronger, and I probably can't keep up with you. But where I'm really going to get good if I want to is trying to keep up with you.
Yeah.
And so, to some extent, if you don't give me the opportunity to try to keep up with you, then I might not have that opportunity at all, right?
Yeah.
And it's not about you waiting for me, right? I'm hard headed. Like I know when I'm in out of my depth and I'm committed. I'm like, if I'm swimming home alone, I'm swimming home alone. But I'm gonna try to catch these dudes. But that's where the most growth happens, and then it's sort of interesting. You watch people. Um, there's a lot of judgmentalness. I've watched people come in who who are gravel riders or city riders, and they got their big heavy bikes, and they're not wearing spandex. And I've watched the spandex guys throw their nose up to them, right? Low key, nothing, but they're just it's a vibe. I'm
Yeah.
pretty, I'm
Yeah.
pretty intuitive. I read between the
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
But then a year later, the gravel dude on the city bike is in spandex on a new bike, and he's
Yeah.
like the fastest of the roadie group now.
Mm-hmm.
Which is to say, an example I call out is if you never gave that dude a chance because he didn't fit your mold, then you wouldn't have him in your circle of fast boy roadie riders, right? So it's like we shouldn't be so judgmental and gatekeep. There's a lot of gatekeeping in cycling. I think like it's got to be Shimano, no, it's got to be SRAM, it's got to be Garmin, got to be Wahoo. It's like there's so much absolutism and bro science, and it's all about like that sort of cult behavior. So it, for me, it's about a culture of inclusiveness, allowing people to kind of find out where they fit in, but it's also a culture of open information. When people come in, I sort of get after them. I'm like, don't ask lazy questions. Don't come in the chat room with your research question being, what's better, Garmin or Wahoo? like, I get on people. Like, it's a lazy question, man. Do your homework and come in with a specific question, like, can Wahoo do this thing I need, or something like that. So again, I'm being a little bit long-winded here, but I think it's just that's the core mission is just sort of that openness of everyone sort of sharing that information, whether it's information about how to fix your bike or what to buy or what to eat or how to train or just
Yeah.
who's riding where,
Mm-hmm.
get in where you fit in. And so it's sort of interesting to watch people dance that line of do we want to be a group type person or do we want to be a solo type person?
Yeah.
Like if you want to be a solo type person, then why are you here? Go be solo, man. Streets is free. So uh, it's just an interesting thing, but I love every minute of it. I love my brothers and sisters, and we get together and we grow, and you look back on it, it feels like I just started my cycling journey, but then I look and I'm like, well, it's been like 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and in that short period of time, people look at me like I've been doing it forever. Like the new people, the pandemic cyclists, they're like, oh, you're a mechanic and you got spandex and you're wow, you know. And I tell them I just started, you know, a couple of years ago, a handful of years ago. Whoa, really?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a large part of that, I mean, obviously you have to have the personal drive to learn, but a
Yeah.
large part of that, I think, is Cycling Fanatics just being there as a resource for me. So that's why it's important to me to make sure other people that want to learn have it as a resource too.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I say thank you, you know, because it's like our strength is us.
Yeah.
So anyone that says thanks for doing this, it's like, nah, this is us. This is you. You're a part. You're just as equally a part of it as everybody else, right? It doesn't work without everyone in there. So you know, my gratitude goes out to everybody who's led a ride or answered a question or, you know, just said, hey, let's meet up. Because, you know, without the people, it's nothing. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I like the camaraderie. I like the community. I'm not gonna lie, I definitely like cycling alone sometimes, but I also like cycling with a group of people. Like they
Mm-hmm.
each have their benefits. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just cycling alone. I'm just going. I'm just maybe I need to clear my mind. Maybe just anything. I don't feel like talking. I just want to ride. And then other days I'm like, I want to ride with these people. I want to meet new people. Oh, I haven't seen these people in so long. It'd be great to ride with them. Oh, we're
Mm-hmm.
going on this journey. It was great that I was with people versus being by myself.
Right? I was scared. I've never been there before. What if something
Right?
goes wrong? I'm 100 miles away from home. Like I don't, you know, that's a lot
Exactly.
too. just,
Exactly.
I get the best of both worlds, right? So you know, I'm a fat dude, and I just try to chase the fast guys, and so I got the social aspect for a bit, and then I get dropped, and I spend all this time alone in my head, and do my
Oh,
do my best thinking. It's sort of amazing, like how you tune out, and then I'll just start thinking about like a relationship I have with somebody, and you know, I've been trying to figure out how to improve something or how to talk to somebody about something, and I'll just be riding that bike, zoning out, and it just pops in my head out of nowhere. It's like the thinking that happens in that Zen state of being alone on the bike is just unreal. It's like, oh, you
yeah.
know what? I think I'm going to ask my boss this about that.
Yeah.
It's just really strange how that hits, but I hear you on the, you know, there's just pros and cons to everything.
Yeah.
Um, but I look at it like, you know, it's an opportunity to share with people when it clicks like that, right?
Hmm.
I go out and ride by myself whenever I want, but when people want to get together, like you said, you haven't seen guys in a while, and it's interesting in that chat now. We got people in Chicago in the chat. We got people in Delaware. It's like it's bigger than New York and New Jersey all of a sudden. So it's neat. Like when I drop in somewhere to you know go visit someplace, and I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, dude from the chat, you want to meet up?
Yeah.
This kind of turned into a nationwide network. But yeah, I mean it's amazing. Cycling has absolutely changed my life. I lost 41 pounds in the first
Mm,
year of riding, and
nice.
just really found a network of people and friends, and it's a healthy habit too. I
Yeah.
remember, like I was telling you, to spend that money on that bike was sort of mind blowing, and I basically stopped drinking and clubbing, which you know that's expensive. You go out
It is.
every Friday and Saturday. That's a lot of money, you know. You think it's $100 here, $200 there, but then you know over 12 months, I probably saved some money with this bike,
Yeah.
and got my health in order. So it's been a really beautiful thing and a huge part of my
Yeah.
life, and I'm
That's
excited to
dope.
see where we go from here.
That's really dope. And I'll tell you another thing. Well, I don't drink or really go out like that, but when I do go out, I'm like, dang, I gotta leave because I gotta be up early to go on that
Yeah,
ride.
yeah.
So it kind of like so that drinking and all that, you probably be like, damn, I gotta. All right, this definitely has to be the last one because I have to be up at 6
That's
for a ride at 7.
that's right. That's right. It's a choice.
Yeah.
It's a choice for sure. And for a while, you know, rock star lifestyle. I'm like, I'm doing both. I would go out and do these centuries on like 3 hours of sleep. I'm
Yeah.
I'm a night owl, right? So that's one thing about cycling that's been really hard for me is I just waking up early has never really been something I've excelled at. so, so I would go out and do these rides, and I'm gonna do a little shout out here. I'm not an ambassador, I'm not sponsored, but I got one of those Aura rings,
Hmm.
and I wear it when I sleep, and it basically gives me like a sleep score and a readiness score when I wake up in the morning. So I used to, me and a couple of my friends, kind of similarly, rock star lifestyle. We'd party and stay up, or just stay up, whatever. And then 6 a.m., they're like, "Yeah, we're rolling. We got to be at Strictly's by 7." And we'd slog through it, and we'd do 100, 120 miles, and just kind of feel like crap all day long. And and anyway, this ring sort of changed my behavior last year. So the ring, I'd wake up at 6. It gives you a score 0 to 100. I'm not sure if you're familiar. It's based on your
Mm-mm.
heart rate variability. Real fascinating stuff. I mean, some people say it's voodoo science, but if I drink a beer before I go to bed, it tells me that I didn't sleep as well, and
Mm.
real interesting stuff. It's like, you ate late last night, didn't you? I'm like, how did you know? But I'd wake up with the low sleep score, so 0 to 100, and if I didn't get a lot of sleep, it'd be in the 60s, 50s, something like that. And so in the last few months, I made a decision. I was like, you know what? I love my homies, but I'm gonna sleep 2 more hours if the ring tells me to,
Yeah.
and I might miss that ride to Bear Mountain, but I woke up at 8 o'clock, and then my score would be in the 90s, and
Hmm.
I'd ride around the city, and I just feel much better about things. So, not to sidetrack too far onto that sort of stuff, but just making better decisions for myself. Like you said, you're watching how many beers you're drinking, you're watching how late you're going out, and so just being smarter about setting yourself up for success has been like a really important thing for me this past year. It's just like recovery and all that. It gets harder every year.
Hmm.
You can push
Hmm.
yourself through it. There's a reason I look like I'm 65 years old. I'm just hitting 40. It's like, it's because I party too hard. I don't care about that recovery stuff. So I'm changing that up this year for sure.
Yeah, that's good, and that's really important. Like, it. Nobody wants to be on a ride. You got 2 hours worth of sleep, and you're doing a ride to the market, or you're doing a ride. You know, it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't. Mm-mm-mm.
You're hungover. It's 95 degrees.
Oh my
You get on a
gosh.
bike for 6 hours.
Oh my goodness gracious. Uh,
and and they give you props. They're like, "Oh, Tay, you're an animal. I can't believe you're out here." But you like feel like shit. You're not really moving
exactly.
fast. It's kind of like, and then the other thing is, it takes you like it ruins your weekend. It takes like a day
Yes.
and a half to kind of get back to normal. And that was the biggest thing about listening to the Ring, because when I listened to the Ring, I wouldn't have that. I could go out the next day. That 2 hours of sleep and doing things a little bit more limited on a Saturday meant I could go out and do things on Sunday too.
Yeah.
Whereas if I went out at 6 a.m. and didn't listen to the Ring, I'd be like just on the couch all day on Sunday. No shame, it is what it is.
Hey, right? No judgment, no judgment.
I'm not gonna lie to myself. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Is there any advice you would offer to new cyclists or people thinking about getting into cycling?
Oh yeah. um, Advice for new cyclists. Two things immediately come to mind, and one I think is probably a lot more important than the other. The first thing, by far, to me, is do the fucking knowledge. Pardon my French.
Hmm.
But what that means is research things yourself. There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of tech. Cycling is mostly a marketing machine. They're all trying to sell you stuff. Most of it is stuff you don't need, I promise you. Uh, a lot of us buy it anyway. That's cool. But do your research and know what's right for you, right? Like I was talking about the lazy questions. What's better, Garmin, Wahoo? What's better, SRAM or Shimano? What's better? Are really lazy questions. And so when I first started cycling, right, I have a technology background. I don't know if you know that about me.
Hmm.
Um, and so I'm a little bit of a nerd and I have this analytical mind. I told you I kind of grew up poor. So I'm really like not trying to waste money.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I do my homework is what I'm trying to say. When I first started cycling, I would ask these questions, right? And the biggest one to me was always Garmin versus Wahoo. And just as a tech guy, I'm looking at the specs, the hardware sheets, let's look at this on paper. And obviously I defer to people and ask real world experience. And what blew my mind about this in particular was so many people were like, dude, Wahoo is the best thing you can buy. And I'd be like, okay, I understand what you're saying. Can you tell me more about that? Can you tell me why? And people would just be like, I don't know, man. That's what my buddy told me. like, like that's not good research. And so I want to be really clear. I'm not here to knock Wahoo, right? But but my point is more so, you got to decide what you want, what's important to you, and then find out who delivers that, right? Like there's so many people just asking for someone else to tell them what to buy. And for that person that told me Wahoo was the best thing ever, it could very well be the best thing for that guy. But for me, after I did my research, I was like, there's no way I would want a Wahoo. I'm a Garmin dude. And I don't want to get into why, but long story short, is just I saw things that I wanted that made sense for me, that were important to me, and that was really clear that that's what I wanted to do. So I call it bro science. There's a ton of bro science out there. Like I said, the magazines. I told someone the other day, right? Cycling's fascinating because a bicycle fundamentally has not really changed in 100+ years.
Yeah.
But every year they change a little something on a bike and tell you have to have it. You have to buy a new bike this year because we added another cog. It's 12 speed now instead of 11. You have to buy a new bike because we put a disc brake on it, or stuff like that. So I just think that there's an overwhelming capitalist marketing machine that's pushing all this stuff down.
Yeah.
There's a lot of swag and elitism. It's all flex, right? It's like, oh, Dura Ace, you got to have Dura. You can't have, you're shaming people for having 105. Like, oh, you got 105. They look down on you. A lot of ego and flex involved. And I think that when it comes to elite athletes on a globally competitive scale, then yeah, that stuff matters. That tiny fraction of a percentage of being faster over 50 miles, you're 3 seconds faster. Okay, that makes sense, right? If that's your bread and butter. But for most of us, man, it's like the more I think about this stuff year after year, like none of this matters, man. You get a 70-year-old dude on a 3-speed bike and he will drop the hell out of you on the mountain because he rides that thing every day, right? It's like you can't buy speed like that. So if you like nice
Yeah.
things, you want to look good, you want some swag, I get it. But I think the real point is just do your own research. Don't come in and have someone tell you, because they'll send you off. They'll tell you that you need this and you need that, and you probably don't need half of it. And they'll tell you this sucks and that's great, and you're spending money on stuff. Like know what you need and what your requirements are, and go out there and get it. I think that's the biggest thing for me. Is just don't follow people. It's a big cult of personality I'm seeing. Where it's like, oh, you got to have Rafa. You don't have Rafa. Oh, you got to have. You seen the Pod Normal Studio stuff now? It's like, oh, we're better than Rafa because this costs more. It's like, does any of that stuff matter? Like, I don't. Maybe it does. Maybe you're the type of person that's like, I need the best material and the smallest seams. And I'm just saying, I'm not knocking any one thing. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, do the knowledge to know what you're getting and make sure that you need it and it's right for you. There are no globally right answers. Everybody's different, you know. And the other thing I'd say is, if you're putting in some miles and you're feeling some pain, if you're putting in a lot of miles and you're feeling some pain, get a bike fit. So cycling's expensive, bike fits are expensive, but there's a reason why, these guys get paid $300-400 to adjust how you're sitting on your bike. It's because it takes a lot of expertise. They dedicated their lives to figuring out these small things. So again, being a poor person, a skeptic of spending money on this sort of stuff, a DIY son of immigrants, I was like, I can figure this stuff out. I'm on YouTube. you know but then after a while you can solve most of it. Some people, God bless them, don't have any pain. Some people have a little bit of pain. They can go in there and they can get 90-95% right if you have the right mindset and you're thinking about stuff and trial and error. But me, I have a thing with my knee and I needed professional help ultimately. And when I got it, I was like, God damn it, why didn't I get this help earlier? So I made an adjustment, asking my friends, right? My friends were like, oh, your seat's too low, bring it up some, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, okay, I'll do what they say. And I went to see the fitter. And one of the first things I told him, oh, I moved my seat up a little bit because my friend told me to, and it made my knee feel better. So I think I'm getting in the right place. First thing dude does is lower it. He's like, yeah, no, that's not right. Boom. And it was just like a punch in the chest of like, we don't know what the hell we're talking about. And so, I told someone the other day, I said, fitting is really sports medicine, right?
Mm.
It's really physical sports medicine. And if you look at it that way, if my friend Tay told me that she learned how to do this stuff on YouTube and she got me, that's not much different from my friend Tay telling me she was on WebMD and she could be my doctor, right? It's just like so much disrespect to the knowledge that these people put in to learn this stuff, right? It's like, I get it. We're in this culture of like, oh, everybody's trying to game you, the capitalist machine, the knowledge is out there. And I believe that for a lot of things. But some things you just got to respect the experience and the knowledge that people put in. And I think fitting is one of them. So, and it doesn't apply to everybody. If you're not in pain, I say don't worry about it. Right. And if you're not putting in, thousands of miles, I say probably don't worry about it either. But especially for my people getting a little longer in the tooth like me, the older you get, like I think that stuff just starts to add up for wear and tear. So if
Yeah.
you're feeling a little inkling of pain, or your hands are going numb, or your neck's bothering you, or something like that, it's a very complex topic. And I would say just beware asking the homies, because people love to tell you with a lot of confidence. Oh, the confidence in their answers is, oh, I know what's wrong. You need to raise your saddle and slam your stem. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Know who you're following, people. And so I think that fits on both ends, right? When it comes to shopping, when it comes to tweaking stuff, just know, like, know what you don't know, and do the research and make sure you're getting sound advice from people, because people love kind of sounding like they know what they're talking about, and they will lead you right off a cliff. For real.
No, you're right. You are right. Do you have any personal cycling goals for 2022?
Oh, I don't want to say it because then it becomes real, and then I have to be held accountable to it.
Well,
Um, Yeah, so I always got some stuff going on, right? So I've always kind of rode a lot of miles. That's kind of been my thing. They call me the Z2 diesel engine. No, not particularly fast. Heavy dude, can go forever. They love drafting behind me on the way to Bear Mountain. As soon as we get to Bear Mountain, they don't want to follow 220-pound Mo anymore. They're 120 pounds. They fly up the mountain and stuff. And my goal initially, like I was telling you a little bit earlier, was to sort of
oh
keep
yeah.
track of where I'm going and cover more new
Mhm.
streets. So there's the goal to kind of cover as much of Brooklyn as I can in New York City. There's kind of a loose goal in general to just ride new places.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, I'll buy a plane ticket. I'm buying a case for my bike. You want to go to California? You want to go to Utah? Anyone got an idea to go do something cool? I'm probably down for that. Let's rent a
Mhm.
car. And there's so much stuff upstate. I think first 4 years in New York, like New York City was very cool and interesting and new. But now I'm ready to kind of spread my wings a little bit. So that's a
Mhm.
thing. But one thing I did, and this is what I didn't want to say, because it's risky and there's a lot of room for failure here, Tay. So I'm gonna need your support.
All right.
But I signed up, and again, I'm not a climber. I don't have a climber's body. I got like a football player, rugby body. So I'm trying to shatter cycling stereotypes. Uh, I signed up for an event where you ride your bike from Venice to Milan in September through
What?
through the Alps, 10,000 feet a day, and I paid for it with my miles. So it was kind of funny, right? Like my buddy went last year, and he's like, "Oh, it's paradise. It's the best thing ever." He didn't want to ride his bike when he came back. He was depressed. He's like, "I don't want to go out in New York. Everything's boring. I was on a mountain. It was the best thing ever." So anyway, I was telling my girlfriend at that time, I was like, this guy wants to go do this thing, and maybe I should go do this. I don't know. And I kind of, when you tell someone something
Mhm.
and you're kind of sure they're going to shoot it down, and so you just kind of say it so they can shoot it down, you can move on with your life. That didn't happen. She was like, you know what, dude? You're not getting any younger.
You should
And
go
if
ahead and do it.
she was like, if that's something that you want to do, do it while you can. That's what she
Yeah.
said. Do it
Yeah.
while you can, because the day is going to come. You're not old, but the day is going to come where you're not going to be able to.
Yeah.
And so if that's something you're interested in, like, get it while you can. And I was like, well, shit, I didn't expect that. I thought you were going to say don't do it. So then I was like, okay. And I went and looked, and it just so happens that my credit card miles covers the flight. I'm like, oh God. I I believe in destiny, Tay. I'm a big believer in destiny and just kind of the will of the universe, the
Mm-hmm.
path of least resistance. And so everything just started kind of falling in line. And I'm like, my form is actually pretty down. I've been working a lot the past 8, 10 months, just relentlessly. So like 2022 and the weather, right? I don't have as many miles at this time of year that I've had in the past 4 years. And so I got a really uphill battle, pun intended, to get into shape for September. And so that's my big goal, is to kind of say, can I lose a bunch of weight again? Because I'm going to feel it on those mountains,
Mm-hmm.
and just become a climber. So my recipe this summer is like Bear Mountain repeats, Alpine repeats, climbing, climbing, climbing. And it's a lofty goal, and I think that success is far from guaranteed. So I'm a little nervous about this one, but I put a stake in the ground. I booked the flights. I got the little crew together, and I'm building a little weight weenie bike to be nice and light and climby. And now I just got to do the work. So that's my primary goal. I think that's like lifetime bucket list type stuff.
Yeah.
If I can get that done in September, I'm gonna be feeling really good. But right now, I don't know. I'm like 70% there, 60%. I got work to do, Tay. You want to
Look,
go for a ride?
listen, you got time. That please take a lot of photos, videos. That is going to be so dope. That's epic.
Yeah, thank you. That's the plan. I'm super excited and scared. So if you're comfortable, you're not growing.
Yeah.
And I'm mighty uncomfortable about this. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a good place to be, I guess.
That's dope. Yeah, you got this. You
How
got it.
about you? What are you doing in 2022? What's your big checklist?
I'm actually doing a skate marathon in Minnesota. Actually,
Yo,
also in September. So, what is it, 26.2 miles? Something
yeah,
like
that's
that.
awesome.
Yeah, so I'm got to prepare for that. And a bunch of just rides. I'm trying to get I want to do 5 centuries
Nice,
this summer. And traveling. So traveling to what is it? Atlanta for One Love, going to Siegel,
nice.
just going places with my bike and, experiencing
Yeah.
that terrain,
Yeah,
you
I saw
know.
you on the Strava. I was like,
Yeah.
okay. Rolling down Santa Monica Pier and all. I was like, okay. Like everybody go moving around but me, man. I want to get on that mailing list. But if I can help you with any of those centuries, let me know. I'm like,
All
I'm,
right.
I'm happy. I'm gonna be out there.
All right. Definitely. Definitely. That's dope. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any last words?
Ah, well, a lot of gratitude. Like I said, I'm super humbled that you even want to hear what I got, going on in my mind and learn more about me. I still can't believe that people would find that interesting. So thank you for having me. I think first and foremost. And final words are really just to everybody out there: do the knowledge. Anything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely anything is possible. It's a mental game more than it's a physical game. And so just have that mental resolve, and don't let people talk you out of stuff. Don't follow people blindly. You can do absolutely anything. People say, "Oh, I don't know if I can ride 50 miles. I don't know if I can ride 100 miles. I don't know if I can." You can do anything you put your mind to. So if my 220-pound ass can climb up into the Alps in the spring or in the fall, like, anybody can do anything. So don't limit yourself, because nobody else can limit you. You can only limit yourself. Go out there and get it. You want to skate a marathon? Go skate a marathon. You want to. Life is short, and the
Yeah,
human body is absolutely amazing. Set yourself up for success and go get after whatever it is that you want, and you will get
that's right. Everything that Mo just said.
it.
All that.
Got the cosign.
Right. Thank you again for being a guest on my podcast. I
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate it. Good luck with everything. You're going to crush it. I believe it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
This
Here's to
was,
2022.
Yes, definitely.
Congratulations on the year.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it, right?
Yeah.
Episode 13 on the 13th. What? I told you it was
I
going to be
enjoy them.
special.
I enjoy them. I look forward to them. It's great stuff you're doing here.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. This is the Rolling with Tay podcast. I'm your host, Tasia, a.k.a. Tay, and thanks for listening. One more Rolling with Tay podcast? Well, follow on Instagram and Twitter at Rolling with Tay. Visit the blog rollingwithtay.wordpress.com for more content, and be sure to sign up for the monthly newsletter. And lastly, subscribe to the YouTube channel Rolling with Tay.